Welcome to Knit with Hannah. I'm Hannah and I'm here with Knitting Natter to help you learn to knit the easy way. What do we have here? We have a double rib, also known as a 2x2 ribbing, and I'm going to show you how you carry on with this, and I just wanted to show you how stretchy that is. I really love double ribbing. It has a really good texture to it, but it can really stretch well too. So I am going to carry on with this and just show you what I mean by 2x2 rib. If you've done ribbing before, you may have done 1x1 rib. You may have seen my single ribbing 1x1 rib video, and what we have here is 2x2 rib. Now that means that instead of doing one knit stitch, one purl stitch, one knit stitch, one purl stitch, we do a purl stitch, a purl stitch, we switch the yarn over, and then we do 2 knit stitches. We do 2 purl stitches, we switch the yarn over, and we do 2 knit stitches. Move the yarn, we do purl stitches, move the yarn, and we do 2 knit stitches. It's alternating between 2 of each stitch. Knit, 2, purl, 2. And it's all very well saying I really like this, it's nice and stretchy. It will not be as stretchy as single ribbing or when you just do one knit stitch, purl stitch, one knit stitch, one purl stitch, because it just isn't. And if you want to carry on with this idea and do 3 knit stitches, 3 purl stitches, 3 knit stitches, 3 purl stitches, that will not be as stretchy as this one either, because it just becomes more like a basket weave and it just looks like a texture, which is great if you want to do squares for a blanket. But the more stitches you put with each alternate knit and purl, then the less stretchy it's going to be. I love this for mittens actually, because it is just that little bit less stretchy. It's that little bit looser when it goes over my hand, but then it really, especially if I do it in a DK, a lighter weight yarn, it can really be tight enough on my wrist when I decide that I'm cold enough and I want a nice secure part of the wristband here. And I really do like a 2x2 rib there rather than a single rib. And you can see here that it is just a case of knitting and purling and knitting and purling. Let's just do one more row. So we do knit, 2, and you can see much more easily which stitch is coming next. You have to learn as you're knitting which stitches look like which stitches when you see them. This little texture here will give you an indication, because that is where the yarn from this stitch here that's on the needle, this stitch that's on the needle has to go somewhere when you create a new loop with the next row. Let me just show you. We have the yarn in the front and we put that through this loop here, move the yarn around, and this loop has to go somewhere. When you're purling, it goes in front, and that's what those loops are there. I'll show you that again. Move this stitch, create the loop, and this stitch from the needle falls in front. But what happens when you do the knit stitch, we move the yarn to the back, the needle goes through that loop, move the yarn through, and this stitch from that needle has to go somewhere, and it goes through and it drops off the back. Therefore we don't see it when we do a knit stitch, because we just see that there. You can see at the back the loop is there, but you see the remnants of it at the front. It's a much smoother texture when you're doing a knit stitch. So as you go along and you think, oh, I've lost my place, when you see this texture here, you're doing 2 purl stitches, and when you see these V's, this smooth surface, then you're doing knit stitch. And that makes it easier as you go along. And this is another reason that I like double knit stitch or 2x2 stitch. It's just slightly faster because you're not moving your yarn to and from the back quite so much as you do with single rib. Now, what you may have noticed is that I'm starting here. There I started with knit stitch and I finished with knit stitch, and here I started with purl stitch and I finished with purl stitch. That's because I have 4 and 4 and 4 and 4, and I have 2 stitches at the end here. So I have 16 stitches plus 2. That can also be 12 stitches plus 2. It could be 20 stitches plus 2, but it is a multiple of 4 plus 2. And that is because when I sew up a seam, I then have this stitch at the end here and this stitch at the end here missing because they're part of the seam, and I have these 2 creating another pair. So 2 of those pairs creating the seam, and then as they fall together around the wrist or around the jumper, then the 2 that are left here create that double as you would with the others. I hope that makes sense. But if you are creating seams with a larger jumper, with a wrist, like I said, if you're using a mittens pattern and you're creating a seam, then it just makes it neater and it looks just that little bit better. It's the details that matter when you're knitting, and you probably will find that with a 2x2 rib that you'll have a multiple of 4 plus 2. So you will start with knitting 2 on one side and you will start with purling 2 on the other side. There you go. That is your 2x2 rib, your double rib. I hope this was helpful, and I do hope I'll see you again soon. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me.